There was a woman named Virginia Roberts Giuffre who said she had been sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to the famed criminal defense attorney, Alan Dershowitz.
The story is totally, completely fabricated. I was sued by my accuser, and then I countersued.
And then the Harvey Weinstein thing comes out, and MeToo.
Stop the violence! Stop the rape!
The MeToo movement became weaponized.
Many men were deemed guilty until proven innocent.
Alan was an unassuming scholar. We didn't know what hit him.
The court of public opinion, there is just rhetoric and accusations.
These accusations had a serious impact on my career, on my family. I had no choice but to fight back.
Maybe like three and a half weeks ago with one of my stepdaughters. Found out that they went to Palm Beach to a gentleman's house, and they start off by giving this gentleman a massage, and he pays them. If he likes them and he thinks that they're pretty enough, he keeps them around to do other things.
In March 2005, a distraught mother in Palm Beach, Florida, calls the police, and she says that her young daughter has taken a job giving massages to a wealthy man at his mansion. And she also says the young girl has begun to have sex with this man. This is what starts the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
Jeffrey Epstein was a very wealthy, a very powerful financier. He was a master manipulator who, regardless of not having a college degree, entered into the banking and finance sector at Bear Stearns. He eventually started his own firm, and from this, developed a very elite social circle.
Jeffrey Epstein has homes all over the world. He has a mansion in New York. He has a mansion in Palm Beach, Florida. He's got a home in New Mexico, a place in France. This guy has more money than God. And the minute Epstein realizes that he's under law enforcement's microscope, he calls the famed defense attorney, Alan Dershowitz, to come and represent him.
The Sixth Amendment provides that everybody is entitled to a zealous defense. And because I was a professor at Harvard, I taught my students that. And I couldn't at that point say, no, I'm an exception to that rule. And I took it upon myself, especially to defend the most despised people.
Alan Dershowitz has represented some extremely high-profile cases like O.J. Simpson, Leona Helmsley, a.k.a. the Queen of Mean, Mike Tyson, Patty Hearst, and Klaus von Bülow, the British socialite accused of attempted murder of his wife, Sunny von Bülow.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein called me and he said that there were these allegations and could I help him put together a legal team. I was only an acquaintance of Jeffrey Epstein. He was a major contributor to Harvard. We never had a kind of close personal friendship. Our relationship was academic. As soon as he was charged with any crime, I was no longer an acquaintance. I was only his lawyer. At that point, there were two charges against him. One involving a young girl who was 17 and a half, just a few months before the age of consent in Florida. The other one over 18.
Every girl that meets Jeffrey starts off with giving him a massage. The more you do with him, the more you make.
At the time, there were no allegations of massive sex trafficking. That came only much later. Ultimately, a deal was made in which he would plead to those two accounts and get prison time and have to register as a sex offender.
Jeffrey Epstein went to jail just before 10 this morning. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility.
Epstein was furious at the deal. He refused to pay me, and he essentially dismissed me as his lawyer. Once he was convicted, my relationship with him terminated.
Billionaire investor and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein went to prison for over a year. That plea deal was negotiated between the federal government and Epstein's lawyer, including Alan Dershowitz. Now, Alan Dershowitz is being accused of having sex with an underage girl.
6 years after Epstein went to prison, there was a woman named Virginia Roberts Giuffre who came forward to say that she had been sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein from 2000 to 2002. As Virginia tells the story, she was lured into the Epstein web by the girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. As a traveling masseuse, she quickly realized that part of the deal was sex. Sex not only with Jeffrey, but with his wealthy friends. And she says among the men she was forced to have sex with was Alan Dershowitz.
It was the last day of 2014. I got a call from the media saying a woman who I'd never met had accused me of having sex with her when she was, 17 and a half. Of course, I immediately denied it.
The story is totally, completely fabricated from top to bottom. I've never seen her, I've never met her, and I challenge her to come on your show and to repeat her allegations.
He was vehement in his strong denials of all of that, but then quietly, he was distraught. And I remember him telling me, Arthur, this is going to now be in my obituary. Not my major victories, not my 50 years at Harvard. This is what they're going to write about.
I've known Alan Dershowitz since I've been 10 years old. He helped my father in a storied case against former Beatle John Lennon, the most bitterly contested deportation case of our time. And not only is he within character as a legal scholar, but as a family man as well.
I'm married to a PhD psychologist named Carolyn Cohen. We love each other. We share everything together. I have 2 children from my first marriage, Elon, who is a film producer, and Jamin, who is chief counsel of the Women's National Basketball Association. And my wife and I have a daughter, Ella, who is a professional actor. All of them were victimized by this false accusation.
His love affair with Carolyn is very real, and Alan was not going to let anybody soil it. I represented Alan with my heart and my soul.
Shortly after the accusation was made, I was completely vindicated. The judge not only struck the false allegations, but he sanctioned the lawyers who made the accusation against me. And then the lawyers settled the case, and they admitted that they had made a mistake, and the case was over.
So it looked like things were okay. And then the Harvey Weinstein thing comes out.
More than 60 women have come forward to accuse Weinstein of sexual harassment, assault, and rape.
And MeToo.
The MeToo movement, it is growing this morning. Remember, Alyssa Milano started it all, inspiring millions of women to share their personal stories of sexual harassment and assault.
Stop the violence! Stop the rape!
Thousands of people took to the streets, sending a message to survivors of sexual harassment and assault: you are not alone.
The MeToo movement took on great traction. We saw very famous names collapsing. Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, even a sitting senator, Al Franken. Many of these men had to resign, lost their jobs, while others, like Harvey Weinstein and R. Kelly, were convicted for their crimes.
It was the reporting in the Miami Herald that really was the undoing of Jeffrey Epstein in 2018. They found 80 women who came forward who said they were sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein, many of them as teenagers.
I was young, I was scared, I knew these people were powerful. I didn't know what would happen if I said no. I didn't know what would happen if I reported them. That 16-year-old girl just let it happen.
And then Jeffrey Epstein gets arrested.
Billionaire businessman Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in New York Saturday on federal charges related to sex trafficking.
Alan is associated with that. So now Alan's name is just being dragged through all of that because now Epstein is so heavily in the news.
The groundswell in the nation when it came to Me Too was looking for targets to hit. Alan was an unassuming scholar who didn't know what hit him when the sexual assault accusations by Virginia Giuffre came back.
The MeToo movement started as a good thing, but then somewhere along the way, it became weaponized.
I am not here for polite protest because patriarchy is not polite.
Do we have to believe all the women?
I think we should.
This ushered in a time where many men were deemed guilty until proven innocent.
The MeToo movement is a double-edged sword. It has done a great deal of good in exposing predatory conduct, mostly by men against women. But it has a dark side, and it has encouraged men and women to come forward and make false accusations in order to make money. It has become weaponized. It has become politicized.
Whenever a movement gains momentum and popularity, you will always have opportunists waiting in the wings to see how they can benefit from it.
Many of these allegations came fast and furious, and some of these men could not even defend themselves. All they could do was resign from their position to lower the threshold from the media. But were they all guilty?
I have a friend who's a lawyer in Los Angeles. She's writing $100,000 checks very periodically on behalf of prominent Hollywood stars and producers. Easier to write a $100,000 check than to endure the negative publicity.
If we think about what happened to Justice Kavanaugh, an accuser came out days before a vote on his nomination as Supreme Court Justice to talk about allegations of sexual assault that happened to her in 1982. The woke and the left just blindly believed his accuser, Christine Ford, without any evidence, just because they didn't like his conservative views and wanted to stop his confirmation to the Supreme Court.
Every allegation of sexual assault or misconduct needs to be treated with the utmost respect and sensitivity. At the same time, every person who has been accused must be treated as innocent until proven guilty.
The media and the public love stories about the demise of wealthy people, famous people. So when these allegations against Alan Dershowitz, for example, surfaced, the media was all over it.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre.
Alan Dershowitz.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre claims she was forced to have sex with Dershowitz as part of Epstein's alleged sex trafficking operation.
If the accusation was just made against me, it probably wouldn't have received the headlines it did, but the accusation was lumped together with Prince Andrew.
In the court documents, Roberts claims Epstein lent her out to powerful men, including Prince Andrew and prominent U.S. criminal defense attorney Alan Dershowitz.
I have no idea about what happened or didn't happen with Prince Andrew. I know what happened in my case, that it was totally, completely, categorically false. Suddenly, because of these accusations, I got canceled from speaking at the 92nd Street Y. I got canceled by Temple Emmanuel in New York.
People were going to stop him at Martha's Vineyard from eating in a restaurant, and were going to castigate him in public.
Shame, 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 shame.
He would speak on campuses throughout the United States, and all of a sudden people were retreating from invitations.
I've been accused of being a pedophile and a child rapist and the worst kinds of things imaginable. I remember once walking down the street with my wife, and a woman was walking by me with her 10-year-old daughter, and she kind of covered her daughter up. When she saw me, it's the most horrible feeling in the world to be falsely accused. Well, there's no doubt that journalists played a role in this. Sharon Churcher, one of the journalists, basically suggested that I be included, even though there was no evidence that I did anything wrong, because it would help sell a book by Virginia Giuffre.
Alan Dershowitz is not only a victim of guilt by accusation, he's also a victim of guilt by affiliation.
A lot of people said to me, we know you're innocent, but we hope you're guilty because of your defense of Donald Trump during his impeachment. And I think a lot of the media took the same view.
Something happened to Dershowitz over the last few years, really around Donald Trump, where he has become an unhinged defender of Donald Trump.
Alan Dershowitz is not a supporter of President Trump. But when President Trump wasn't given a proper hearing or a day in court, he stood in the well of the United States Senate, much to the chagrin of his family and the social consequences.
The narrative around the MeToo movement became believe all women. That translated to believe all women if they were telling the truth or not.
The presumption of innocence operates only in court. And when the media is terrified about even looking into the background of women accusers, because they're terrified of being accused of victim shaming, it becomes very difficult to win your case in the court of public opinion.
At the peak of the MeToo movement, there were so many other men who just gave up. They didn't defend themselves. Alan Dershowitz did.
The first thing I did was to write an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, in which I said, FBI, please investigate me. Of course, the FBI didn't do it.
He had this strength and this powerful voice and these denials.
You claim you've never had relations with Virginia Giuffre.
I never met her. I never met her. I never saw her. I never met her. I never heard of her. It's a totally made-up story. It had a serious impact on my family. It had an enormous impact on my health, on my career. I wanted to be totally, completely exculpated.
He just goes out there again on the media circuit and does what Alan does, is pounds his chest and he says, this is not true.
She is selling false stories now for money about me. We have tapes with her best friend in which she says that she was pressured to falsely accuse me.
I never heard her mention you when we were kids or until very recently when things happened in the media.
Alan spoke so loudly that that's what started the lawsuit.
I was sued both by my accuser and by her lawyer, and then I countersued.
Dershowitz says Giuffre and her lawyer, David Boies, falsely accused him as part of an elaborate extortion scheme.
Unlike other people who are accused, even if they didn't do it, they have things to hide about their marriage, about their relationships. Not me. Everything's an open book, which is why I never was willing to pay a single penny.
Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing sex trafficking charges.
After Jeffrey Epstein's suicide, the focus didn't go to the wealthy friends of Epstein that might have been sex trafficking these young girls. It went to his former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. She was arrested, convicted, and she got 20 years in prison.
For those caught up in this, the lawsuits, litigation, scrutiny, negative headlines continued for years after Jeffrey Epstein's death. He left a path of destruction in his wake. For example, logs from Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express, show a list of high-powered politicians, academics, and celebrities.
Every day, lists are coming out about people who are on his plane, people who may have visited him in his home, people who may have visited him on his island. And it's so important to distinguish between people who might have done things that are criminal and people who simply had associations with him. And there shouldn't be any assumption that anybody who knew Jeffrey Epstein must have done something wrong.
So Alan gets sued federally by Virginia Giuffre for defamation. He gets sued in state court by Mr. Boies, her attorney. I believe that was after we got Mr. Boies removed from the case because he may have been a witness in the case. And Alan is suing both parties for defamation. And we were in a real war, a real battle.
And it took years and lots of depositions and he said, she said, and the media and everybody clashing with their personalities.
Virginia Giuffre and David Boies have done a terrible disservice to a great movement, the MeToo movement.
I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced.
I think he's a disgrace to the legal profession. I think he's a person with no shame. He is somebody who believes that he can bully people, and he's gotten away with it.
I was deposed for hour after hour after hour, and nothing damaging came out whatsoever because there's nothing damaging to come out.
We really thought the case was going to have to go to a trial. I so didn't want that for Alan. He's not a young man. He's not in the best of health. It's not how he should be spending his days at this point in his life. So I was all for trying to figure something out. But I also knew he was not going to admit to a thing, which of course I respected.
And when we were about to depose the lawyer on the other side, they quickly settled. The case is now ended with an admission on Virginia Giuffre's part that she may have mistaken me for someone else.
Well, a woman who claimed to have been sexually trafficked to attorney Alan Dershowitz now says she may have made a mistake in accusing him.
No money was exchanged, and as far as I'm concerned, the matter is over. Afterwards, I commended her for the courage of coming forth and admitting it. I hope that anybody who was really victimized by Epstein can recover and move on with their lives. They have my greatest sympathy.
Ultimately, we got where we needed to go, but there was a big emotional price to pay, physical health price to pay for Alan and his family. And I felt so happy for his wife, who really, she suffered a lot, undeservingly so. I mean, she's a victim here, tremendously.
And in the Dershowitz prosecution here, and this was nothing less than a prosecution, it took years and $5 million, all the money that he had earned in the 50 years he was a professor at Harvard Law School to vindicate his name.
For some people, it's still not over. Every single day, I get accused of being a pedophile. I get accused of being a child rapist.
People often forget the aftermath of false allegations because the truth is lost and they only remember the allegation.
Even after an accuser comes out and recants and says he's actually innocent, the media doesn't bring that out. They kind of bury that.
The accused individual in this day and age of Google will always be connected to their accusations, whether they were exonerated from them or not.
I'm a victim of a false accusation, but I hate to consider myself a victim because in the end I won and I prevail. The real victims who are losing are the women who have been victimized, who will now be discredited as the result of the false accusations made against me and others.
When false allegations become highly publicized, it diminishes the true impact of what people sought from the MeToo movement.
We need to find the balance again of understanding, compassion, investigation before we leap to a conclusion.
In the court of public opinion, there is no trial, there is no evidence, there is just rhetoric and accusations.
We need to be accountable to truth and justice.
The American way of innocent until proven guilty is slipping away, and that's very sad and dangerous.
If this can happen to Alan Dershowitz, it can happen to anyone.
And I will continue to fight to make sure that there's justice for the real victims of sexual misconduct and justice for the victims of false accusations, and to make sure that it never, ever happens again to any other innocent person.